to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Steph and this is my au pair series where I'm making videos leading up to and during my time in America as an au pair. This is the 5th video in the series and this is going to be all about questions to ask during your Skype calls with potential families. So if you don't know already, I am with Cultural Care Au Pair and I have matched with a family. I'm leaving in May, fingers crossed with everything going on, but hopefully leaving in May. All the questions I'm going to go through today are questions that I asked families that I spoke to. There are loads of questions that you can ask anything and everything. Don't be afraid to ask anything because it's a massive decision and you need to know everything about the family, what they want in au pair, etc., what they allow you to do, what they don't allow you to do, rules, regulations, everything. You need to know everything. So don't be afraid to ask anything. There is no wrong question to ask. But personally, these are the questions that I asked and I'm going to just go through them with you to give you a few ideas of things that you could ask potential families. So I kind of split them into two sections. The first one was questions I wanted to ask on the first Skype call, and then the second lot are questions I asked on the second Skype call. The first lot of questions are sort of gauging if I would get on with the family, what they kind of want in an au pair and things like that. And then the second lot are a bit more casual questions like about the car, about curfew, stuff like that. So the first question, and probably one of the most important questions, is what will my schedule look like? You need to know this. I know it is on the profiles for the family, but I found that when I asked the question, it was a little bit different than what they had written on the profile, and also they go through the schedule in a lot more detail with you. So it's really important to ask that question so you know what you're going to be doing over there, what times you're going to be working, what your kind of job role is going to be, what they expect from you, what they don't expect from you, things like that. So that's a very important question to ask. Another question I think is important is asking if they have any house rules, what their kind of rules are within the home to do with you as an au pair and the children, because some families can be very, very strict, and if that's not what you're used to in your home country, it can be very, very difficult to adjust to a lifestyle that is stricter than yours, or vice versa, not as strict as yours. So asking what their house rules are, what they expect from the children and from yourself is important to ask. Another important question I feel is how they discipline the children. There are so many different ways that people discipline. Some parents are very, very strict with discipline, others are very loose with discipline. You know, there's a load of different ways that parents discipline their children. Everybody has different views on discipline and how to discipline children. Your views on discipline may be completely different to the families, and the way you were raised, or the way you raise children in your family, or you discipline children in a setting you work in, may be completely different to the way that the family do discipline. So it's really important to get an idea on how they discipline their children, because you're going to have to follow that discipline routine when you are over there. So in this Skype call, you want to know as much about the children as you possibly can. So I asked what the kids like doing, what they dislike doing. That's a really good way to gauge what the children are like, what their personality's like. So parents love talking about their children, so if you ask what they like and dislike, or what they're like playing with, anything like that, they will tell you in mega detail what their children are like, which is always nice to know and good to know in the first Skype call, I think. I also asked what the neighbourhood is like, because obviously where you're going to live is important. Knowing what's around, what things you can do with the kids outside of the home, what you can do in your spare time, if it's, you know, a built up area, suburban, is it in the city? Knowing about the neighbourhood that you're going to live in is important, at least I think it's important, so that is something I asked in the first interview as well. And then I also wanted to know about food, because I'm quite fussy and I also can't drink cow's milk, so it was important for me to know about food. So I asked what kind of food they eat regularly, what their kind of diet is like, and then also if the kids or the parents or anyone in the family have any allergies. That will need to be followed in the household regularly. So I work in a nursery, so I know that understanding allergies is really important. So you need to know if the children have allergies, how strict they are, what you need to do if a child does have an allergy and they have a reaction. You need to also be confident in dealing with food allergies because they can be serious, they can be life-threatening, so it's really important to understand any allergies that the household have. So another question I asked was how they spend their holidays, because immersing myself in a different culture and a different country was really important for me. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this whole programme. So getting involved in American Christmases and Thanksgiving, 4th of July, all that kind of stuff was really important to me. So talking to the family about how they celebrate those holidays and if they celebrate those holidays was actually important for me, and that might be different for everybody. You might not need to ask this in your first interview because you might not care. But part of that experience for me was celebrating the holidays and being involved in the family during those holidays. So asking that question allowed me to then know if they would involve me in their celebrations. So that was important for me, so I did ask that. So another question I asked in my first interview was, will I be driving the kids places? How often will I be driving them places? Will I have my own car, or will I share the car with you? Normally I would just say, will I need to drive the kids places during the time I'm caring for them, and they will then lead on to say if I'd have my own car or anything like that, so you don't necessarily have to ask that question outright, because I find that quite an awkward question personally. So I just asked if I'd need to drive the kids places, and then that normally followed with them telling me if I'd have my own car or if I would share the family car. So yeah, but that's an important question to ask first if you're not very confident with driving, or if you're someone like me that really wanted to drive while I was over there. If I wasn't going to have a car or access to a car while I was over there, that kind of really swayed my decision of choosing a family, because I love driving and I drive a lot in my home country. So if I was going to go a whole year without driving or driving very little, I didn't like that. So that's why I asked if I would drive the kids places, because it kind of gave me an idea of my access to cars and how often I would be driving, which is, like I said, important to me. So that's kind of all the questions I asked in the first interview. Normally it flows quite easily, and the questions that you ask will kind of lead into answering other questions that you may have, or you might even end up having questions answered that you didn't even think about asking. I do have more questions, which are questions that I asked in my second interview, because they're a bit more kind of about me and kind of my benefit to living with the family, if that makes sense. So for example, I asked if I was allowed to use the car in my free time. This question might have been answered already when you asked about driving the kids places, but me personally it wasn't. So I asked in my second interview if I would be able to use the car in my free time. So if that's not answered, that's definitely something you should ask, because it's something that will stop you maybe from going out in the evenings, or you'd have to get public transport and it's extra costs. And then also maybe ask how paying for gas would work. If you used it in your free time, would you pay for the gas, and then during work hours the parents would pay for the gas? It's all kind of, it will all tie in together, and probably that will be answered while you talk about this question, but that's also something to think about when asking about the car. Another thing relating to maybe using a car in the free time is having a curfew. So some families don't have a curfew. Every family is different. Some will have a curfew for the car but not for you. So if you take the car out, the car has to be back by midnight, but you don't have a curfew. Some say you need to be back like 8 hours before you're due to start work the next day. Some have a curfew for midnight. It differs for every family, so it's really important to ask that question. You are an adult at the end of the day, but you are also working for the family, and you need to respect that you need to be fresh and ready to work the next day. So staying out all night and going partying is not okay. So you need to make sure that you understand what the family expect of you, when you should be back, if you have a curfew, if the car has a curfew, etc. Just so everyone's on the same page and there is respect between you and the family. So something that is really important to me is travelling. So I asked if the family would need me on evenings and weekends, because I would use my evenings and weekends to explore. So a family that would need me to work on weekends maybe was not ideal for me, because weekends is going to be my main time to travel and see as much of America as I can. So in extension to that question, possibly ask if there's the odd time where you could have a Friday off or finish early on a Friday so that you could go travelling. My family is so amazing and they are really flexible with me travelling, and they understand that part of doing this programme is to travel, so they are really flexible with me finishing early on a Friday or having a Friday off to be able to go away for the weekend and have a bit more time to go a bit further afield and see a bit more of America. Another thing that was really important for me is social media. So I am massive on social media. I make YouTube videos, I love Instagram, I love taking photos, photography, scrapbooking, all that kind of thing is massive for me. So a question I asked was, am I allowed to take photos of the children? Can they be included on my Instagram, on my YouTube channel, that kind of thing? That's a question that I just personally wanted to ask because it is important to me, but if it's important to you as well, you ask it as well. I think asking about taking pictures of the children is a good one to ask because some families don't like their children being online. Some families don't mind it. Another question I asked was about a phone plan. So are they going to provide a phone plan? Will I need to bring my handset or will they provide a handset? Again, each family is different. I know families that had a phone for their au pair, so they could still have their phone from home, but they would also be given a phone for being able to contact the family and all that kind of stuff. So, but also families will just give you a SIM card for your current phone and you'll just have an American SIM card with an American number. So every family is different, so maybe ask that so that you know where you stand with using your phone in America and what they're going to do to help you get an American SIM card, etc. And finally, the last question I asked them was if I was allowed friends over to the house or if I was allowed to go and stay at friends' houses and vice versa, and if my friends and family from home were able to visit and stay at the house as well. Some families are a no-no. Nobody's allowed to stay at the house, nobody's allowed to come in the house. Some families are really flexible and like, yeah, sure, as long as we meet them, they can come over, they can stay over. That's a really important thing to ask because families do have very strong views on whether people come into the house or not, so definitely ask that question as well. So there are all the questions that I asked in my first and second Skype interviews. A lot of these questions will extend to them talking about things that you probably didn't even think about asking, and they might even talk about things that then spike a question in your mind and you think, oh, I should ask that as well. So, you know, it all flows pretty easily, but these are the start questions I had for my Skype interviews, and you always think of more questions to ask and the family will have questions for you as well. So the conversations are pretty simple and they're pretty easy and they flow really well. Don't be afraid about talking to them. Don't be afraid to ask any question you have on your mind. No question is wrong. Don't get too personal when you first start, but don't be afraid to ask anything because, like I said in the beginning, this is a huge decision to make and you need to know everything. If I missed anything out or you have any ideas for questions that you think are important to ask on a Skype interview, tell me in the comments because I'm sure it will help people out as well. And if you did like this video, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe down below if you want to follow my au pair journey, and thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!